Hi, friends. Welcome to this panel discussion. We have today eminent industry specialists who will be sharing their valuable thoughts on how digitization in enterprises is creating certain risk scenarios and how companies should work towards building a cyber resilient organization and also have adequate security. That is the basic objective of this panel discussion. We have with us Mr. Mukherjee with the background from banking system. We have Mr. Devam Shah. We have Mr. Vijayendra Sridharan and Satya. And I'm sure all of them will bring diverse industry experience to this issue. Before we start off, I will request each one of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves. I'll start with me. I am Lavi. I am the chairperson of Foundation of Data Protection Professionals in India. I started my career way back in 2000 in cybersecurity, and now, of course, I'm into data protection area. Yeah, Mr. Devam Shah, we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, hi, I am Devam Shah, and currently I had information security and IT for Teachment. We are into ecosystem of schools, and I have around as a CISO, I have around 4 years kind of experience. I have been heading IT security from last 4-5 years, and before that, I was managing. I was into security into quite a decade kind of experience I have. I mainly have experience into some of the defense related projects, some of space related projects when I was a part of the enterprises. Then I have experience in healthcare sector, then payment related and finance related sectors. And also I have some exposure toward the IoT and OT security. I'm really fortunate, and thank you organizer, thank you team to organizing this interesting panel discussion, because when we talk about resilience, I think around a decade or 7-8 years back, it was only about BCP. But now cyber resilience, very interesting topic to discuss, and happy to share my views as well as like really lot of discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vijayendran.
Hey, good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for inviting me along. I am Vijayendra Sridharan, and I am the Chief Information Security Officer and also the Data Protection Officer at Business Next, also popularly known as CRM Next. We at Business Next, what we do, it's a CRM software product. It is customer relationship management software product for the banking and financial institutions in India and across the globe. Okay, that's what we do. And what we do, in fact, it aligns well with what the conversation today is about. We are talking about digitization. So our product, CRM product, helps in digitizing as much as possible the journeys or the customer journeys, the interaction between the financial institutions, the banks and their customers, the banks reaching out to their customers, or the customers reaching out to the banks for various products. So we play a very key role through our product in digitizing this journey. So just to share, I'm also happy to share that Business Next as a firm was rated or placed in the Forrester Wave in the leader segment. Okay, we are the first and the only company from India to find a place in the leader category in the Forrester Wave. This is as fresh as this month. This happened in August. We are a financial services product firm. Security and privacy is very cardinal and the strength of our product as well. So glad to be among all of you. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Vijayendran. Mr. Satya.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good day to all of you. First of all, thanks for providing this opportunity to our CXO Tech Plus Media and the other analyst, right? Thanks for this opportunity. Okay. I have about 10+ years of experience in IT, and which comprises of decade of experience in cybersecurity. Right, cybersecurity, like IT works multiple domains within cybersecurity, like network security, application, product security, and cloud security. Right. So currently, I work with Wipro. I'm Wipro's Group CISO organization. Right, and I probably take care of cyber defense governance and cyber resilience governance, right? Which is a key area to be monitored and as part of organization's security posture, right? And I am happy to be part of this discussion in which we will talk about the enterprise cyber resiliency. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Mukherjee.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Sogandal Mukherjee. I'm the CISO of Fincare Small Finance Bank. I'm CISO for last 4.5 years with Fincare Small Finance Bank. Before that, I worked with Wipro. And before that, I worked in Indian Navy for last 20 years. Cybersecurity definitely is not a profession for me, but it's a passion. Always fighting against the unknown. And hope I will be able to contribute a fruitful way in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, friends. So, as all of us are aware, there is a race in the industry towards digital transformation of our current businesses. See, while cyber threats affect all kinds of organizations which are actually transforming themselves from non-digital or less digital set of operations to more digital operations, I think they are the persons who today are enamored by the new kinds of threats which are coming up all around us. So I think when we try to think of digitization, immediately we also have to look at what would be the risks which will be arising out of any new digitization actions which we will be initiating. So with that in mind, I think we will try to first understand what kind of cyber threats are being seen in the industry as of today. Of course, when we talk of cyber threats, we are talking of global scenario. Maybe, if possible, we will try to see whether there is any difference in the threat landscape as far as the global situation is concerned, and whether there are anything special as far as the Indian scenario is concerned. I think as experts in the industry, you will have had a lot of experiences. I hope most of the experiences are not your own experiences, because we don't want to have cyber threats affecting our organizations. But at least we will be gathering some kind of, experience from the industry around us. So let us have a round of thoughts on what kind of threats are being seen, particularly in the last 1 year. And then we will see in the coming 1 year, let us say, what kind of cyber threats we could expect. I think we will start with Mr. Satya.
Yeah, sure. When we want to talk about the emerging cyber threats, right? So it is more or less similar to what we might have observed in the history, right? And maybe a little bit deviations here and there when we see any forecast for the future, right? So the history can be repeated and the variations, like a little bit of variations added here and there, right? So you have to largely segregate the cyber threats, right, which we are seeing today and which can emerge in the near future. Right? So maybe a cyber crime-based threats, right? So that are contributed in the bounds of malware or ransomware, right? So that is one primary emerging area, like ransomware as a service, right? Where you don't need a lot of expertise to create a ransomware. You can just the hackers can just go and buy the service, ransomware as a service, right? And they can make utilize of it and to get the benefits from the ransomware, and they can target certain organization, right? And also, like, primarily they are targeting small extortion-based ransomware. Right? So it's not a very hi-fi kind of ransomware wherein triple extortion are involved, and where they're just focusing on a small ransomware utilities, target some industries and get some benefit out of it, monetary benefit out of it. So that is one on the cybercrime aspect, right? The second aspect can be your nation state-based attacks, right? So that everyone knows that multiple parameters can contribute, right? Geopolitical reasons and different countries in the different geographic regions, right? So they may want to make use of or channelize the cyber weapons for benefit of their political reasons. So that is the second area where we should be considering each organizations, right? So there also the targets can be minimal, right? It is not going to the nation state actors are not going to target all types of sectors, all types of industries, all types of companies, right? The target can be minimal, but that is one area the enterprises need to think through and put some focus on, right? And the third area can be crypto-based tools, right? So cryptocurrencies being a unregulated one and decentralized currency sector, right? Which is unregulated, and so there is you don't know how the cryptocurrency can be used, right? So it is mostly used for sometimes and most of the times, right? It is used for non-good reasons, right? So bad reasons, right? So that is one area of concern that can come. And the attackers, the fourth area can be the attackers can leverage themselves with advanced tools, right? So there are a lot of tools that they have with advanced technologies like AIM or embedded, right? So they also can make use. How organizations are investing on AI and ML or advanced techniques in the control area. And similarly, attackers also can make use of advanced technologies. And then fifth, but not the least one, right? Insider threats. Insider threats is the most devastating one. Like it can lead to a most devastating attack, right? Those insiders are majority of the time trustworthy persons, but unfavorable situation, they can become disgruntled and they can launch an attack, right, with the access that they have. Right? Insider threats also something that organizations should be considerative of and they should be focusing on. Right? So these are some thoughts related to the emerging threats.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Satyan. Satyan is highlighting threats like the crypto-related threats, ransomware, which are affecting a lot of organizations. But let us also hear from Mr. Mukherjee, particularly from the financial segment. What kind of threats are you foreseeing in the immediate future?
Okay, sure. Vijay, we need to understand what the present situation we are going through when we trying to bifurcate or try to extract out some forward-looking direction where this cyber attacks is going to be. Point number one, now from the introduction of the panelists, it is quite evident that the digitization is the order of the day. What does it mean? That every organization not only feel proud to portray themselves as a digital organization, it's also a matter of survivability now. You want to scale up your business, so more than bricks and mortars, you need your digital infrastructure to scale up and to survive in the market now. Nobody likes to visit the bank branch or railway station or airport to booking tickets or doing any transaction. So everything people want in their mobile wallet. I want to do everything from mobile. So that enables the rapid digitization. But when we say rapid digitization, it also brings with it the increased attack surface. Now, increased attack surface, you have thousands of APIs which are running, your applications are facing public-facing applications. You don't have control which is being accessed by the external users of this thing, how malicious they are or what purpose they are using. Now, in such a scenario, how can we safeguard and what is actually happening in the industry? Satya correctly says that ransomware. But there is a wonderful phenomenon which has come out lastly and people will appreciate that. The average time for any ransomware attack previously was more around 270 days. It was in the industry standard. Now what's happened, if you see that the average time is maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days. If you have vulnerability, you have open ports. If you have no control in place, then they just encrypting that thing. And then they are asking for a ransomware. What does it mean? Because previously the attackers were much sophisticated. They do their research, they extract the data. Extracting the data in the enterprise environment requires amount of patience, time, and your knowledge, your expertise. Now, due to that ransomware as a service, what Satya has told, which is flourishing in the dark web, the beautiful model is that you will always share the part of the revenue. So upfront, you need not require to invest anything also. You take a ransomware, you go encrypt, ask for bitcoins, whatever you will get, you will give them 20%. If you don't get, you need not require to pay. So my investment is nil. My technical expertise doesn't record anything. I need probably a RDP port open or vulnerable service running at the internet facing. I will have the foothold. I will go to a server. I will encrypt. I'll ask ransomware. I don't care about your data and all these things. I will corrupt your backup. So whether if you are in urgency, you will pay. Otherwise, you will don't pay. So the average time for ransomware, first initial foothold to ransomware has been reduced drastically, and that's why the number of ransomware attacks are increased many much. Second thing, due to the geopolitical situation, there is no order of the day. If you see, internet is a boundaryless. That moment you keep some boundaries on firewall, the basic preamble of internet will go away. Now, what's happened? Every country does have a boundary. Now, if war is going between Russia and Ukraine, we don't have any physical problem here sitting in India, but there is a cascading effect on commerce and every other things which is affecting us. But in the cyber world, there is no country level definition. So anything happening there, there is a lawlessness, nobody is listening. So the cyber crooks or the attackers become much more potent, and this thing. Cyber tools has become one of the biggest agenda point for any country. If they can disrupt rather than physical, your digital infrastructure, there will be more pain because people are prone to their digital infrastructure more now. So the way industry is going on is that rather than protecting your physical boundary, you have to pay equal importance to protect your digital assets. Otherwise, the disruption may come. So we all the transactions are based on all these things. Imagine a situation your Udai servers are not available, your whole transaction will fail. Your bank is not there, you are standing out of the operation theater, critical operation supposed to be happening, you have to pay. You cannot pay. So there is a cascading effect and social disruption or social, some disruption you can bring in by just disrupting the digital infrastructure. So in that way, I believe that as the days going, digitization is increasing. So these things have become more important.
Mr. Vijayendran, from what Mr. Satyan and Mukherjee spoke of, they were talking of ransomware being one of the major threats, and they were also talking of triple extortion. Can you just expand on this concept of how ransomware itself is evolving from what it was about a year or two back to the current state, which I think Satyan made a reference to this triple extraction. Perhaps give me your thoughts on what is exactly triple extraction in ransomware.
So what happens? Ransomware, if I start it, has transformed from an esoteric activity to a commodity activity through as a service, no ransomware as a service. Okay. Now, what is happening is ransomware is clearly an outcome of multiple smaller attacks on an organization. Okay. And when I say the way ransomware has evolved, when you said the evolution of ransomware itself, okay, it has evolved through multiple smaller attack vectors being bundled into a larger ransomware-based service. Okay. Now the thing is, credentials heist. You call it as credentials heist or theft. Okay, and vulnerable ports or ports left open, application or some service ports left open, combined with credentials theft. Right. These two in combination may allows the ransomware bots to make a successful attack. The way it is evolving is, just for all of us to have a clarity, credentials theft and scanning the internet for vulnerable services or the ports, services running on the ports, various applications. And then bundling this is a very systematic activity. They bundle both this information and present it to a syndicate about themselves. Okay, there is a separate group of people who first harvest this information, and then they bundle this and place it to two kinds of people. One is state actors, where there is interest about specific state assets, and rest goes to the specific files which get leaked in the dark web. Okay. For example, let us say one XYZ company, it is just a normal private firm, or it's not a government entity. Such data gets hosted on the dark web for say for as low as $10, $15. Okay, it depends on the sensitivity of the data that is there inside, and then a separate syndicate works for state actors' sensitive data. Okay, and from there the next level of bots start operating on these assets. First is the harvesting bots, then is the attack bots. Okay, and that is where our friend Sohan said that sharing from the outcome, the revenue they get from the outcome happens. Right, this is how I have seen these actors acting very systematically. Okay, there's hardly or very rarely or seldom there is an human activity actually happening here. A lot of bot driven. Second, there is a third category here, which I'm seeing in ransomware. As soon as a ransomware attack happens, very popular ransomware mitigation advisory firms get this feed, and they have a system of inside sales teams, okay, who get this feed, and then they call these victims saying, I think you are under ransomware attack. Can we help you? So it is a syndicate going beyond the dark web, beyond the dark actors. It is going. They are feeding into the vendors as well. So we have seen this happening in repetitive patterns, come again and again. Okay, moving slightly away from ransomware alone. What I'm also seeing is, since the past 2 years, as AI has grown again and again, we have a separate point to touch upon. But from the emerging threats point of view, what I'm seeing is interactive chatbots, the risks where AI capability has been included. One emerging threat I'm seeing is, which I'm aware of, some of my friends discussed with me in the past 6 to 7 months, is we call something as generative AI, like the chat GPTs, which are also vulnerable to attacks. Second is the interactive AI, where a firm sells chatbots to banks. Okay, for example, the bank, some of the banks uses chatbots for interacting within their departments. Okay, for efficiency. So attacks have come up in intercepting these transactions and also doping or infecting those chat outcomes using cyber attacks. Okay, so they are defeating the interactive AI conversations as well within organizations. This is another emerging thing which I'm seeing that is coming through the AI. I'm also thinking, if interactive AI can be infected, so can be generative AI, like the chat GPTs, in various use cases. So that is the other thing which I'm seeing in terms of the emerging threat in these next 12 months. But talking about ransomware, that is a cycle I'm seeing, from stealing of the credentials, scanning the internet for vulnerable services, bundling the data, putting it in dark web based on sensitivity, giving it to state actors, and then finally also that coming as vendors calling you. So how is this? This is here in a much tougher spot now. If vendors are taking the same feed from there and trying to make sales calls. So I am talking about popular vendors, which I have come to know from industry. Yeah, over to this.
Thank you, Vijayendran. Now, all the three of our panelists have highlighted how the ransomware itself has evolved. I will now go to Mr. Devan. One of the recent developments, relatively recent, is earlier ransomwares used to encrypt data and ask for, say, ransom, and they would send a decryption key. But today, they most probably, before encrypting the data, they exfiltrate the data and hold that exfiltrated data, sometimes with a threat that if you don't pay me, then I may release it in the dark web. With the emergence of a lot of privacy-related laws, where there would be very high level of penalties imposed for any data leak, plus the reputation loss which would acquire, any of the companies are more worried when there is exfiltration. See, otherwise they may have, let us say, efficient disaster recovery things, but even that sometimes may fail. But assuming that they have got good disaster recovery, perhaps they may be able to reset their servers and overcome the effect of just encryption. But once they have a feeling that there could be a data leakage, there is customer data leakage, not necessarily only the company's data leakage in the dark web, then the threat goes to a higher level. I think that's what Satyan was also mentioning. So now, as a CISO, now how do you look at this exfiltration happening? Say we are talking about one that most of the attacks take a long time. Maybe as one of, or if you are pointing out, it is no longer perhaps 270 days, it is perhaps less, right? But even then, no exfiltration or attack matures just like that. In fact, it would take at least about 90 days. Even one of the latest surveys was talking of 90 days or something like that. But in this 90 days, why is that we are not able to understand that exfiltration is happening, okay, or mass encryption of files is happening? Now, as a so what kind of controls you would like to think of to monitor, are my files getting encrypted other than where we have planned it to be? So are there an excessive outflow of data from my network? How do you address this as a CISO?
Yeah, so excellent. So, as Mr. Mukherjee correctly told, now digitization is a part of our day-to-day job. Correct. So, a few years back, we never imagined like entire schools are running digitized, but now it is very much possible. Hospitals, like okay, clinical, even in India today also they are maintaining the physical records, but in the USA it's anyway digitized, and that trend is coming to India. So maybe after maybe a few months or years, everything will be digitized in India. So when we are progressing towards the digitization is shifting to the core of the industry and to the industry. Okay, if I talk about space industry, defense industry, digitization was always there. Space digitization was there. But if you talk about these kind of industries like healthcare, education, digitization was not that much involved in the entire ecosystem, in the core of the ecosystem. Okay, so when this shift is happening, the digitization is becoming the core of the entire industry. The thing is like it becomes very much important how we protect it, and that is how this cyber resilience comes into the picture. Now, first problem if I see, then that is from the people point of view. So if you ask me from the technology, or if you ask me from the control point of view, then first most uh, important thing to be addressed is the people point of view, because these are the people who never worked with the digitized technology. Even they are very highly educated individuals like doctor or lawyers, but they haven't interacted, they haven't worked on the digitized system, and it is very easy for these kind of hackers or bad people to fool them out. So first of all is the awareness, like people point of view, they should be aware, because if you see the ransomware attack, then yes, we discuss lot on the technology part, and definitely I agree with all of the point of view. Like if firewall port is open, then yes, hack can be done. But just analyze like how many such things happen via this kind of vulnerability, and how many of attacks happen because of the people mistake. People just share their OTP, people just share some of the credential. So that is one of the reason. So here we need to see two things: one is defense and one is the attack. So when you have very strong defense, where we talk about defense in depth and all those things, then attackers, whatever, however the powerful attacker is, it will be very hard to attack and break that system. Correct. And if there is no motive, like if there is gain is less, then attacker will lose the patience and go away. So defense in depth is very much important. And when we talk about exfiltration, then if the data is going out, then it is definitely required to have continuous monitoring. So one thing is like, okay, first we need to prevent how they can enter. So they can enter via open ports, they can enter via open vulnerabilities. People is very important point through which they enter. And that is a social engineering. Still, like it may sound little less techy, but social engineering is still, I think, will be on the highest priority, because nation will become digitized, and as nation will become digitized, social engineering is the easiest way to get the data out to do such kind of attacks. So one thing is that, then after that, if the encryption is getting started, so it is very much required. Like when we have the entire architecture or entire things on the cloud, or many of the banks and financial institutes are also moving towards the cloud. There are certain companies like us or startups who are cloud born, where it is very difficult to track the assets. Like developer want, they create the assets, and then when they want, they destroy it. So in these kind of scenarios, like it is very much important to have the continuous monitoring system, because if the your environment, your technology become agile, you cannot go with the waterfall model. So you cannot have that PDCA and all those cycles. Okay, I will do that. My 3 months are in plan. No, your boss, your entire environment is agile. Okay, you need to be agile. So if they are changing, you need to have that continuous monitoring. And if something you are seeing which is outlier, then definitely the notification should come to you. So we talked about AI-based threat, but I should also talk about AI-based defense. So it is very hard. Like if you have seen more billions, trillions of logs, then how hard it is to find out user outlier or entity outlier who is doing something which they never done in last 30 days. So if we are able to catch that, okay, this particular server or this particular microservice is doing something which it never done, then yes, we may be able to identify that outlier and catch that. This is how we can control the data exfiltration, because data going out and coming in maybe in TBs or PPs. But then we need to see, like user wise, one user is uploading 5 GB daily, and suddenly we see a spike 50 GB. Then, yes, this is the highlight outlier which should be highlighted. But one user is daily uploading 50 GB. So it should not, it's okay, it's a normal user behavior. So when we talk about AI also we need to implement on the defense side as well. And also there is one concept called blast radiation. So any this kind of thing happen, then how we are able to control that blast. So it should not be like that one thing happen or one account is compromised and entire of your company has gone. So we need to have small segmentation of the accesses. If not, it is totally zero trust based access, then maybe risk based trust access we can implement, where highly critical servers should be have zero trust access or zero trust network, and then later maybe we can implement entire ZTNA for organization. But yeah, we need to have that kind of strategy to find out these things, and AI is very important here to find out these kind of attacks. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. So what we have so far discussed is that digitization is a business requirement. So all of us are looking at that. Then the attackers are looking at the expanded, you can say, the attack surface, and trying to exploit it, because they can also have access to technology, sometimes better technology than what we can do. They have got a lot of time, and as some of you are pointing out, the crime as a service is actually making it very, very difficult for the defenders. So when we talk of cyber resilience, now you pointed out one aspect where the people have to be properly made aware of, because as Mr. Vijayendran was telling, the final, say, ransomware attack happens after several other smaller attacks accumulate, like identity theft, and then introducing a virus or a Trojan, and then it uses the encryption and then exfiltration. So all this is a combination of several attack strategies which people use, and because there is a time involved in executing this, there is also an opportunity for defenders, if they are agile, as you were telling. Where is that we are failing in our agility? If we are letting your 30-40 days that Trojan remains in my system, is keeping on encrypting it, and I'm not aware of it, how do we, as say, experienced security people, look at this as a acceptable strategy? I think Mr. Mukherjee should be able to speak about this, because financial sector is one of the most vulnerable sectors. More sophisticated attacks take place there, and the new generation organizations could very easily fall prey to this kind of ransomware attacks and suffer heavy losses. So how do we build this resilience as a part of our strategy, Mr. Mukherjee?
So, yeah, Vijay, a very, very pertinent question. Now, if you go and ask in the industry what is cyber resilience, and then a lot of people, 9 out of 10 people will tell, cyber resiliency means even an attack happens, how quickly you get back, restore your system, and start your business. I think the statement is partial. Now, the question you have asked is very pertinent, that, and what you told, that Vijay has told, is a very pertinent question, because in any attack, a ransomware attack cannot happen in one day. It starts, it will compromise something, it will now deploy, it will now finish from initial access to privilege escalation to lateral movement. So, in every phase, in any cyber defense, there are 3 terms. One is annoyance, second is attribute, third is action. What do you mean by annoyance? Annoyance is how difficult for an attacker to compromise from one of your system and then do the lateral movement, privilege escalation, and all these things. Every point of time, he has to bypass multiple control. It's a layered security system. So, when I say annoyance, more the annoyance, when you go for zero trust, for every phase, you have to authenticate your endpoint, yourself, 2-factor authentication. What we are creating more and more annoyance, what will happen is that there will be credible, indication that something which is happening is not correct, and you can now segregate it from the common noise. Yes, something is unusual which is happening, and basis those attributes, now you can go investigate and take the appropriate action. So these are 3 annoyance, attribute, and then action. Now, what is happening is that the resilience part not starts with when you are compromised, you will return back to the original system and keep your system running from your backup or ABCD. Resilience also come in control resilience. If one control fails, the other control will be able to substitute that resilience in your design. Now, we always forget that thing. I have my antivirus, my ADR running. How do I know that agent gone silent? How do I know my endpoint DLP agent is malfunctioning? Do I regularly tracking those things? Do I have resiliency? So fundamentally, what I'll say the need of the hour is, yes, definitely the cyber resiliency is very, very required in terms of every organization is being attacked day in and day out. Some point of we may be successful in fighting back the attackers 100 times, 200 times, but they will get succeed even the way technology is going on, AI is coming, sophistication is going on, capability is going on, motivation are more. They will definitely succeed one day. And then if they succeed, do I have means that I can get booked to my feed? My backup testing is happening, my offsite backups are kept stored safely and all these things. I have a media control, everything is in place. So that resiliency is very, very critical looking into the number of attacks which are happening. Because today or tomorrow it is going all to be happen. And if it happens, how we respond is matter rather than how we try. The other point is that regular control testing, resiliency in your control. The first point, when they have the initial access to do a privilege escalation or to remain still, they have to bypass your security controls. To do that, if they're able to do one thing, do you have an element of surprise on your next control? It able to give you a credible voice that yes, something is happening. And if we have a very good potent mechanism of monitoring those attributes, if we collect and investigate, I think we are in a better position to identify that this thing, some controls fails, somebody has able to infiltrate my network, and what preventive actions should I take.
Fine, Mr. Satyan. Now, all of you have highlighted the technology-related risks. One thing I want to ask all of you is, how much of leadership support you expect as a CISO when you are trying to put together almost a very impossible task of defending against the unknown enemy? And at that time, investments are required of various kinds. Maybe insurance also is required. So how does the leadership react to such cyber as presented by experts like you in an organization?
Yeah, that's a good question because leadership support is very paramount, right? So top-down approach is required when we are defining our cybersecurity strategy, right? So the push has to come from the management, right? Because our end objective is supplement the business objective and complement the business objective, right? And not to create any differences. In the means, we should be helping our business and enabling our business by creating more security strategy, right? So yes, management support is pretty much required. The management should be apprised of what is required, right? Management may be asking, okay, we have done so much amount of investment. What is the current return of investment, right? So I already invested so much of money. We have so many controls on the ground. And what is the current return on investment? And you're again asking me for more money, more investment. Those are a valid question. So it's responsible for the CISO organization and the entire security team to convince the management by providing a valid data points, right? So why do we need cyber resilience, right? I'll just go to the little bit of fundamentals in terms of cyber resilience and then I'll stop, right? So because cyber resilience is, as Mr. Sovan Mukherjee said, it's not only about just recovering from a failure, right? It is about the control resilience and all the resilience of other aspects, people aspect, process aspect, right? So in the fundamentally, like when we wanted to design our cyber resilience effectively, it should be considerative of our business continuity planning, our disaster recovery planning, right? And our incident response capability and incident response planning, and our crisis communication planning, and what are your physical security aspects, right? So these are fundamental elements that you need to consider as part of your cyber resilience, right? So when you're considering all of that, so all of these things work together to provide you a cyber resilient environment, right? So when we put together all of these things, and they may be working in a small silos, right? When you put together all of these things and present it as a viable viewpoint for the management, right? They'll certainly have an acceptance from the management, and they'll certainly provide you the required fundings, like when you convince them with the right data points.
Mr. Devam, I have got one specific question for you. See, Satyan spoke about the ROI. Okay, so as CISOs, you always have this problem of going to the management, asking for investment. The question is, they said, we have already invested, how much more you want me to invest? So how do you quantify the potential loss situation? Is there a kind of valuation of data in an organization and the potential effect of an attack on data? Can you say to your management, sir, we have got 20,000 crores worth of data. So therefore, we need to secure that. We have to invest 1% of the 20,000 crores or something like that. Is there an attempt? So we normally what we do, perhaps we say XYZ company, the hackers wanted, said 1 crore this thing, another company paid 5 crores. That is one indication which we are talking of. But dark web, has here laundry list of all data and perhaps the value attached to it. That is, if it's a financial data per set, $100, so wealth data, so much, something like that. Now, as an organization, I have a data inventory. I know I've got 1 million, say, credit card data. Okay. Now, if this 1 million data set is lost, then market value of this in the dark web is that 1 million into $100 or something like that. Can we talk of that kind of approach to convince your CFO or your CEO to have increased investments in information security?
Yeah, so this is a very actually good example. So basically what I do is like I have just rather than going into very fancy risk register, and definitely we need to create for compliance point of view, but rather than going into very fancy risk register or something, when I have a meeting with my board, I have just only 4 columns. Column 1, explain the risk title. Then column 2, explain the impact in very layman terminology. Column 3, if it happens, then what is the business loss? How I get the business loss? I have the meeting with various business and like CFO. I have a meeting. Okay, boss, just assume if your every of this data is lost, then what is your cost? Then he may tell, okay, company will shut down. Then what is the company's valuation? Okay, it's $1 billion. Put the $1 billion. It's the company's valuation. And then this is the risk. And then one column is probability, like, okay, any trend or something like this is kind of things are happening or not. Then if the everything is high, then simply one newsletter edited article which says, okay, your company is hacked because you haven't invested at this point in time. So that actually work, like you have that kind of thing, and then I present actually like this is kind of things, and then we need to invest that. Now, one part we also need to, as a security leader, we need to understand is the business part, where this is very important, because the thing is like there are certain things like business can't commit, and certain risk we need to accept. So our duty as a CISO, what I feel is identify the correct gap and highlight into the understandable terminology to the business. Then we also need to understand, because it's definitely if you want to close all the controls, then very high side of budget is required, which might not be feasible, because definitely business executive knows like exactly where they need to commit. Our target is, okay, boss, there is the problem and this is how severe the problem is. If we are able to communicate this effectively, then I think the half work is done. If you are able to, because they have started the company, okay, they are the they are the executives, they are the CEO, CFO, okay, if they have that, like, okay, if this is not done and this is going to cost me and this is the probability, then I see very less chance of getting that rejected. So yes.
Now, Mr. Vijayendran, when we talk of this expanding threat scenario, see, suddenly something happening in the environment could affect your risks. One such instance is, for example, in India now, okay, government has come up with a law called DPDPA, okay, Digital Personal Data Protection Act. And people say that there could be 250 crores of penalty or even higher or something like that. Now, I am today protecting personal data as well as non-personal data. I think you said you are holding a designation of a DPO also, CISO and DPO. So I think you are the right person to answer this. Now, this passage of a law by the parliament of a country, how much of risk that imposes on an organization, and how will you look at your current digitization process, whatever changes you have to make, and future plans, or how do you moderate it, or perhaps go back to the board immediately and say, this law has come, I was not expecting it, but suddenly it has come, so therefore we need to immediately do something because the risk has increased. Because tomorrow the government or the board will be monitoring the activities, and even before any breach happens, the problem with this data protection laws is, even when breach has not happened, you may have to pay 250 crores or 500 crores. Okay, so that is a new scenario which we as CISOs are facing. Earlier, CISO's problem is when an attack is there, when a breach is there, when risk will materialize. Today, not having a DPO, not conducting a DPIA, not conducting a data audit, even if no breach has happened, you may still be called upon to explain. And if the data protection board is harsh, they may actually impose penalties for such things. We have seen that happen in GDPR scenario. that even without a data breach, millions of dollars fines have been imposed. We hope Indian authorities will not be so harsh, but still, this is a risk scenario. Now, as CISO and DPO, how do you look at this incidence of new risk coming because of the passage of a new law?
Yeah. So, Nami, very good, actually a good and very important question, because just on August 11th, we all got this new law into our country, right? So, having said that, two things. 250 crores penalty. It goes from 100, 200. They have kind of given a menu of penalties, right? And let us say on an average for many companies, it could even wipe off their net worth.
Yes.
Okay, that is a risk. Without getting into details, even if it is an average 200 crores per breach, per breach event is what it says, right? So it could wipe out in one breach event, and if there are multiple pans of the pain, the breach pain coming multiple pans, the way it happened with Yahoo and Verizon. Even after Verizon consumed Yahoo, Verizon was declaring the effects of that breach, right? So if such a thing happens, it can consume the organization's network altogether, right? The going concern parameter itself could get diluted, right? So that is one. Now, when I talk about my banking customers, okay, on the impact of this, in how do we conduct it? One, as an organization, GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act, Singapore Mass DRM and their PDPA 2012, Singapore's PDPA 2012, all these have helped us kind of stay ahead of the curve before our Indian DPDA came into effect, right? As a matter of fact, okay. Now we will be intersecting our India DPDA with our CERT India rules and IT rules, and we will be implementing it. Now what we are actively doing is, those additional items, for example, the three things. My customers who are banks, all of them are banks or some sort of financial institution, insurance firms, NBFCs. So I'm expecting them to be declared as significant fiduciary, data fiduciary, significant data fiduciaries. I call them SDFs for brevity. Okay. So then the data auditor, independent data audit, privacy impact analysis, and DPO. All these three processes become important. Okay. That is one. We are having conversations with as many stakeholders we should have. Okay. One. And also, not only by virtue of this India DPDA, by virtue of GDPR and the California Privacy Act, the CPRA of California, we have been reviewing our customer journeys. When I say the banks interacting with the customers interacting with the banks, both ways, right? Those journeys. Okay. And how are we handling data? This has been part of our control and privacy posture, if I call it that way. Okay. We call it security posture. Second is other parallel things, privacy posturing. We are already working on it. Now, there are two kinds of stakeholders. Let it be customers or internal or external stakeholders or our ecosystem stakeholders, including the board. There are two kinds of, largely two kinds of stakeholders, two types. One, who are as aware as the CISO or a DPO, who are sensitive about this, and and the second category of people who become more aware when such regulations, very heroic regulations, come into act, right? Bills become an act. So this is an opportunity I'm using in sensitizing the second category of stakeholders. Why have we been doing this for all these 2 years or 3 years or 6 years, right? GDPR May 20th, 2018, I think 4 years now, right? 4 years. Why have we been doing it, right? In preparation for what India would go through on August 11th as well, right? So this is how using these regulations right now to sensitize, accentuate the need for this discipline in privacy or security, right? So this act always, even in its absence, had its effect on us. It had its impact on us because our customers are global. We are globally responsible for the various privacy regulations, but this act has helped me sensitize it across my stakeholders. The rest of my constituencies who are not yet sensitized, they need a law. There is a law. I'm taking it to them. Yeah.
I like that idea of using this as an opportunity to actually sensitize or fortify your current security practices. Perhaps that is the right way to look at that. Now, I think we will have a last round of summary of thoughts from each one of you. Maybe Mr. Mukherjee, final comments on this topic and whatever we have left out during the discussions, please.
So 2 points I need to draw attention is that in this cyber chain or digitization phase, one of the potent attack or the risk vector is supply chain attack. And we have seen that is point number one. And we have to be very, very careful. Even a cyber attack is not there, but if we have geopolitical conflict, then somebody stop providing us the support. What will happen? That's we need to look into and build a better cyber resilience from the country perspective. That is one point which need discussion, and I can see some positive impact in the government side where the Maya, operating system is coming and government is taking a lot of steps. But what I believe is that corporate or enterprises, Indian enterprises also has to come for self-reliance after Bharat. We have seen the impact on Russia when all the sanctions has been imposed and a lot of bigger service provider, IT service providers stop providing them services. So how in such a scenario if tomorrow happens, either east or with the west, how will you handle that? What means do we have in such a case? That is one of the potent risk factor we need to consider. Second part is that see, the value of data or value of something is when it is there, is not. When it is not there, if the data is not there, the systems are not there, then what is the value? What I'm going to lose? My right eye doesn't have any value or my eyes doesn't have any value. But if those eyes are not there, how it is going to impact, then I'll be able to better derive the value. So when we are doing our risk assessment, we need to see in the framework tomorrow my systems, my data is not there. Can I get back and this thing? And on top of that, in this digital world, nothing can be hidden. A public enterprise or bank like us. So what is the reputational damage? You just go Google, what is the SolarWinds today market value, share prices, and what was before the cyber attack? You will create a clear visibility what an cyber attack can impact an organization. There are n number of such examples out there. So as a responsible these things and what data privacy law in India as empower us is definitely there will be some overhead to comply with the same, but it's for good. We need that thing for a responsible country, for a responsible organization. But when I quantify, now need to quantify and say, go to the board that this is at stake. If the systems are not there, the reputational damage, the legal and compliance, and on top of the data privacy, you assume a bank like us, 250 crore. Now you quantify how much you want to put control into that thing. I think that thing become, one way it is harsh, but one way it has given some definition, what is at stake. So I think we have to, it's a cost of doing business. We don't have any choice rather than to accept it and build a better cyber resiliency, better control into that. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Satyan, can you add your final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Now, I will present my points in three different perspectives, right? The people, process, and technology, right? So people should be aware of the cybersecurity culture, right? So they should be having the cybersecurity culture imbibed in them. So that organization should leverage that by having the right set of policies and creating the right set of awareness, right? So insider threats is one major contributing factor towards any attack, right? So that is also a major factor in the recent attacks, right? So awareness creation for the people will certainly help, number one. And in terms of process, right, having the right set of process, earlier also I touched upon the right set of incident response management process, the crisis communication process, and all these processes should work together to align with your cyber resilience requirements, right, so that you can be better prepared for any such worst scenarios, right. And number three, the technology aspects, right, you should have the right set of technology, like being a proactive threat hunting is required, right. So you should have the right set of threat intelligence tools, threat interface that should be having, so that you get the right information from the dark web or deep dark web, right? If there is any company confidential information is available or compromised credentials are available, right? So such kind of information you'll be getting it proactively so that you can better defend your organization, right? Yeah, those are my views.
Thank you. Mr. Devan?
Yeah, so I like to brief this entire things into just 3 points. Point number one, mandatory things. So the things which are mandatory, we need to follow laws of the lands. Like if you are doing business in EU and you have some privacy related data, personal data, definitely you need to follow GDPR. If you are doing business into USA, you are dealing in healthcare sector, you need to follow HIPAA. So mandatory, no negotiation. So those are the mandatory controls we need to implement. Number two, now compliance is not the best practices. We all agree, like compliance is the mandatory level. Above that, there are the best practices, defense in depth, and DNA, many other things are there. So now we need to understand technology and the business. We are the CXOs are the equilibrium between business and technology, and we need to suggest, like based on the business, what all things we need to put. So it's kind of more kind of crafting job. Like, okay, one shirt cannot fix to everyone. We need to have different shirt for different companies, different clothes for different companies. So according to that, we need to craft the security controls and we need to put those things. So now here in this scenario, we need to accept certain risks. We need to accept certain times. We also need to think like how we can reduce or how we can transfer. But yes, we cannot mitigate all the risk at that point in time. The third thing is, if this thing happened, how happened, we don't discuss on that. But if this happened, like, okay, if all my financial data is out or if my production is down, then how I can recover. So having the different playbooks, having the tabletop discussion on that, and then having proper preparedness with technical drills, like if something bad happen, even after implementing number one, mandatory controls, number two, like whatever are required, those kind of controls, even after that, if something like that happen, then how quickly we can recover and how quickly we can reduce the damage. Thank you.
Thank you, friends. I think we have completed our time. Just to summarize, of course, we all agree that cyber threats are a reality. We need to address them through awareness building, process changes, and whatever else we can do. But only problem is that you have attack industry, which is actually working overtime and trying to use the latest technology, whether it is artificial intelligence or maybe quantum computing, and they are putting the more and more challenges to us. And whether it is dark web or this crime as a service, which is openly available, I think our laws have not taken a strict view of that. And see, we go and block a media, website or something if there is something wrong. Why can't we block the Google search result on crime as a service? Because entry into the dark web, how can we regulate that and prevent is a challenge which we need to do. There is no reason why dark web should exist and hurt all of us. And of course, most of the people who are in the dark web are also people who are in the surface web also. But that's why we feel ethics is a very important aspect for security professional. And perhaps in my view, government has to put in more efforts on ensuring that the threats from organized criminals is to some extent addressed. Otherwise, I don't see how a phishing company can exist in Noida or something like that, where 100 people are working there, taking salary month after month, only to do phishing work. I don't understand how it's possible, because they are all our own young people who have got engineering graduates and they took this as a job and then they're working. And are they not aware that what they are doing is not legal? So this is where it is not only a question of building awareness with our own employees, the awareness in the society. What about the parents of those people? You ever see that photograph which came a few days back, people covering their face when the photo is being taken, how their parents would have felt that their son or daughter is working in a company which is a fraudulent company. So when we talk of cybersecurity and building the cyber resilience inside an organization, we also, as the community of CXOs, need to do something to advise the government that you also have to come up and help me in regulating the industry so that the threats can be slightly reduced. This is all the final thought which I have. Anyway, thank you, all of you. And thanks to CXOTV, Shaitra, for bringing us all together to exchange thoughts. These will always help us to understand this topic better and do our whatever we are doing better in the future. So thank you, friends, and good day.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.